Every town has a high street bakery. You know, when you travel, you get off the highway and go to and find the bakery.
Hello and welcome to Food Waste Matters, where we focus on turning waste into worth. I'm your host, Dr. Joanne Freeman from Honey and Fox, and we're here to uncover those stories of businesses, experts, and innovators who are turning food waste into value. So our 2024 Food Waste Matters series is all about showcasing the solutions and the successes that can help us all in the fight against food waste. So in today's episode, we will be speaking with Carolyn Cameron. Now, Carolyn is the Sector Action Plan Program Lead from End Food Waste Australia. Hi, Carolyn, and welcome to Food Waste Matters 2024. Now, can you tell me about your role at End Food Waste Australia? And then can you tell us about how these sector plans came about?
Thanks. Lovely to be here and to talk about the things that matter. My role is I am the Sector Action Plan Lead for End Food Waste Australia. And we've been doing these sector action plans for about 4.5 years now. And what we do are about engaging the key stakeholders across the supply chain on how to best reduce the food waste in their sector. When we looked at Australia's goal of reducing food waste by half by 2030, we realized that you can't do it alone. You can't do it with one person or one company or one government. It needs to be a collaborative process with engagement. So we bring together the people that are most able to make the types of changes that we need. And we have some conversations. We usually do this in terms of looking at the sector and saying, so what are the hot spots for waste? What are the root causes of that food waste? And then what are some of the solutions you can do? And then we get them to talk about which ones might be the most feasible and which ones might be the most impactful. And then we decide which are the 3 to 5 ones that we're going to start with and get going. And it's been really fun over the years to have these conversations. And most of the people didn't know each other when we brought them together. And then they've said, let's keep going. Let's keep a working group going. Let's not lose this dialogue and this conversation that we've had.
Caroline, what sort of people, who are on these working groups? Good question.
We've had everyone from growers when we've worked with horticulture, guys that come in with their hats and their boots, to the big retailers, produce buyers. We've had people from transport, from industry associations, from academics, from different types of wholesalers, and so we've gone clear across the supply chain and bring them all together, and they know what they do really well. They don't know it necessarily, and they know their industry really well, but it's bringing that conversation together to say, well, what we really think, and we provide evidence to the extent that we have it. We don't often have full evidence to be able to provide, but we can give them that evidence and say, well, this is what the literature says, or this is what the interviews said. What do you reckon as a collective, and where do you think we should focus? So that's been a really powerful conversation. Right now, we've done a number of things like bread and bakery, dairy, and most recently horticulture. And now we're working through the End Food Waste CRC to do a number of ones in food service. So 19% of all Australia's food waste happens in food service and institutions. So that's considerable.
Significant.
And so we're working on projects on catering, which we're just finishing. It should be up on our website by the end of this week, by the beginning of March. We're looking at cafes, quick service restaurants, hospitals, and aged care. And we think there will be some similarities because they're all providing food in an environment where they're cooking it and providing it. But we think there'll be differences as well. based upon their model. Obviously, the institutions are providing food as part of another service, whereas cafes and quick service restaurants and catering, the food is the business, basically.
Carolyn, can you just clarify, just for our listeners, what you mean by institutions?
So things that where food is part of the service but not the real service. So they might be hospitals, schools, prisons. That whole range of often public, but it could be private facilities if it's aged care, that are providing food as part of a broader service.
Mm-hmm. And Carolyn, can you just do a bit of a deeper dive into one of the sector plans in particular?
Well, one of my favorites is bread and bakery. It was, we put together a group of people. We had people that had been in the industry for quite a while. We had major companies that belong to the Australian Food Pact, like Tip Top and Goodman Fielder. We had our household expert, so that she could say what happens, to bread in the household. It's one of the most wasted products in the household. You wouldn't think that, but it is. We also had, we looked at where across the supply chain we needed to focus for that one. So we knew that, like, the Grains Research and Development Corporation had best management practice for on-farm. We also knew the Australian Millers Association had a really good process of just reworking the flours and other things that they had so that they didn't have much food waste. So we basically started kind of from the mill to the household, but didn't go deep diving into the household. But we recognized that things could happen in bakeries that affected how the household treated the bread. So we had a number of that hotspots, root causes and solutions conversation. We worked through a number, and we do it as workshops. We provide some evidence, we have some conversations. Is this right? What do you reckon? And then developed that into a number of opportunities for the industry as a whole. And obviously the things for the bigger companies are different. But one of the things we came up with was small bakeries. Small bakeries are, every town has a high street bakery. When you travel, you get off the highway and go to find the bakery. And they may not know about food waste. They may not think about food waste. What can we do for them? So we had said that developing best management practice guidelines for those types of bakers was important. And then the Bakery Association of Australia came to us and said, we've been involved in this. We think this is really important. Would you like to, could we lead this? And so the New South Wales EPA and Food Waste Australia both provided a bit of funding. It wasn't huge, but worked with the Bakery Association of Australia to write "Don't Waste Your Dough" for those small bakers, and been really good feedback. We presented it. We launched them last year at the National Bakery Show in Sydney. Because it's in New South Wales, they've been particularly focusing on there and helping to roll it out within New South Wales. And I just spoke to Tony Smith from the BAA the other week, and he's got 3 or 4 bakers that he can talk about how they've changed their business on the basis of what we've done. And it's really heartening to see that actual on-ground change from a conversation that started when we recognized we needed to bring together a supply chain.
Just on that, and sticking with the bakery action plan, what were some of the main challenges, especially for these small businesses, the high street bakeries? What were some of their really big pain points?
Well, because often those bakers are baking in the middle of the night, they didn't have standard operating procedures. They didn't have, the maintenance might fall behind. And then if the ovens go out, you lose the product. Another thing was they often made what they had made the day before, the week before, the month before, and didn't look at what was actually happening. Maybe you don't need 6 cream buns at 4:00 in the afternoon. Maybe you can kind of look at what gets bought. So getting some good point of sale systems into those places is one thing, and some of the ones that we have good experience with now have done that. And it tells them, what they're selling when and what they need to bake. And also the more sophisticated systems give them some feedback on, what to order to do that, having standard recipes, and being able to understand how their system works. But being food waste aware is probably the first thing. Is this the way we do business, or is this a product that we have made and it doesn't have a market, and therefore contributes to food waste?
So when you said being food waste aware, was that one of the biggest surprises for you doing this sector plan?
For all of them, Joe, because what we've done, and it doesn't matter whether it's a cafe or a big horticulture grower, once they start to measure and to understand what is actually happening, it's not just the way we do business. It's an opportunity and a challenge for them, but it's that measurement and that awareness of that they're creating food waste unless they do something with it. That's the biggest thing that we struggle with. We just had cases recently where we've gone to premises and they said, no, we don't have any food waste, but they do. So it's that understanding the potential, the cost, and the opportunity that goes with it. That's a bit of a challenge with these guys too.
So how do you get them on the journey, Carolyn? What's that? Because that is a challenge. It's getting them on the journey. If they have little awareness, how do you get them on the journey?
Just get them to measure. Just get them to source separate. This is plastics and metal and other stuff, and this is organics. This is what's come through our kitchen. This is what's come through our bakery. This has come through. Once they start to see the magnitude of it, it certainly starts to focus. On farms, we had the same experience. One of our farmers said, when you can measure it, then you can manage it. And it wasn't until he started kind of separating and really looking at what was happening that he understood the magnitude of his opportunity as well as his current problem.
So that's probably one of the takeaway messages as well, is if you can measure it, you can manage it.
Yep, indeed.
So, Carolyn, how can other businesses get involved?
Start measuring, start looking, start appreciating the opportunities. The other thing is to collaborate. If there's a message here, it's about collaboration. It's almost like the real estate location. It's collaborate, because it is when you start being aware, being part of an industry association, being part of a local council project, being through the states and territories. They have programs like New South Wales EPA's bin trim that looks at what's happening in your industry. When we did the horticulture plan, we kind of had a page at the back of the bananas and melons plans that said the 3 Ps: be proactive, start by measuring. That'll really help you. Participate in an industry activity, such as creating. One of the things is it could be one person in an organization that kind of changes the culture and changes that awareness and starts holding a mirror up to their processes. Or, it can be building a culture either from the top down or the bottom up. It's more difficult from the bottom up because you're, saying to your colleagues, maybe we could do this better. And then the other one is partner across the supply chain. The third P is partner. And that's about that collaborate. If we start doing things like that, we could establish that ongoing dialogue, and looking for opportunities to work together to reduce food waste, reduce the associated environmental impacts, increase profits, and hopefully get more food donated, because that's been another theme that has emerged from all our conversations, is opportunities for increasing food rescue donation, because 1 in 6 Australians is food insecure. It's just, we're not the lucky country when it comes to that. So we need to do something collectively together to assist that too.
So Caroline, you mentioned so many key takeaway messages today, from measure your waste to the 3 Ps, proactive, participate and partner. And then there was collaborate, and we mustn't forget, don't waste your dough. But if there was one absolutely standout important message you'd like to leave with us today, what would that be?
Do something. Become food waste aware, and just take some action, and it will lead you to explore further actions and bring your colleagues with you, either in your business, in your supply chain, in your community. Take people with you. Spread the word. That would be my final message, I think. Thanks, Jo.
Well, thank you. Look, thank you so much for joining us today, Carolyn. It's been a real pleasure, and I look forward to the launch of the next few sector plans.
Me too. Thanks.
Thanks. So we've just heard from Carolyn Cameron from End Food Waste Australia. So if you're wanting to find out more information about the sector action plans and how they could help your business, just head over to www.endfoodwaste.com.au, where you'll find the 6 current sector action plans, which include the bread and bakery, which Carolyn spoke about, the dairy industry action plan, the food cold chain action plan, food rescue, food service, and also the horticulture action plan. Now, if you want to get in touch with Caroline or anyone from the Sector Action Plan team, just send an email to inquiries@endfoodwaste.com.au. So that's the end of our episode today, and a big thank you to Carolyn Cameron from End Food Waste Australia for sharing with us what's happening in various industry sectors and the importance of being waste aware. It's clear that there's a lot we can all do, whether it's big or small, to make sure we're part of the solution and not the problem. So to stay up to date with all things Food Waste Matters, you can sign up to get notified each time a new episode is published. Just head over to our website, www.foodwastematters.com.au, to subscribe. There you'll also find our full podcast archive, which includes show notes and guest contact details. And of course, if you have any questions, feedback, or you'd like to be a guest on our show, feel free to reach out to us at foodwastematters@honeyandfox.com.au. Remember, the fight against food waste is a collective effort, and we're all in it together. So until next time, keep up the fight.